Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, Ida.
Buenos dias.
And then Carolyn. That's Carolyn. Okay. Susan? Do you mind unmuting and saying hello?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan. I'm going to try to join. I have a 2-year-old who is currently happy downstairs with daddy, but that doesn't always last. So I'm just happy to be able to listen to whatever I can.
Okay, great. Kate?
Good morning. Kind of like others, I'm going to be moving around a little bit, but happy to listen in and glad to be here.
Great. I think that's all I've got here on. We're just kind of introducing ourselves. We've gone around the table. You mind starting back there?
Sure. I'm Kevin.
And Judy.
And George.
I'm over here. I might be in and out a few times, so excuse me for that.
Okay.
Full screen and gallery.
What are you trying to do? Are you trying to get to the full screen?
Yeah.
Speaker view.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, full screen. Sorry.
There we go. Yeah.
Is this too loud or is it the right volume?
Okay. Thank you much for being here to talk with us today. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Wes Clay Anderson, and I'm not much of a public speaker, but there's a lot of people for me. So I'm just going to introduce myself, and then if you guys obviously have questions or anything, feel free to ask. My husband and I live here in Glen Ellen. We live on western north of the tracks. And we moved here about 4.5 years ago. We lived in Columbus, Ohio before that for about 4 years, and we're from Virginia. I have a degree in social work, which is what I did up until one of our first son was born about 5.5 years ago. So I stopped working and stay-at-home dad, and my husband works in a bank. His name is Todd, and we have been going here at St. Mark's ever since we moved here, so 4.5 years. We have 2 sons. One is Davis. He's 5.5. He went to preschool here, and he goes to Churchill for kindergarten now. And Noah he's 3.5, and he goes to preschool here. And it's very much big handfuls. Lots of energy. We always joke that they're completely opposite children because they are completely opposite in every single way. Both of our children are from adoption, but we have had both of them from birth. And I'm open to questions. I don't. There's a lot about me, but obviously a lot of it you don't need to know. I also work here at St. Mark's recently. Took on some of the communication stuff, which is what Melissa did before. If you guys remember Melissa. She stepped away a few months ago, I think. So I help with some of it, and Ida does the rest of it. So I do a lot of the weekly emails. I do the weekly emails and the Sunday emails and the Facebook and website and Instagram too a little bit. We try to dabble in that. And so if anything is from that, it's usually from me. So. And Ida helps with the rest of it, the bulletins and stuff. So. I am open to questions to get the ball rolling on some other conversations, if that's okay. Sure. Yeah. Whatever you guys want to ask me or whatever.
So, I know what's kind of been a new experience for me is to be gay in the suburbs with children. So what is it like to be a family with 2 dads living here in Glen Ellen?
Well, a little bit. Todd and I have never really lived in a city. We are from Richmond area. We lived at Bruce briefly in the city, but Richmond is not a big city, so we didn't live in the city in Ohio, we don't live in the city here, so we've always been suburb people, and that's where we're comfortable. Whether or not people are comfortable with us is the question, but, you know, we have, most good experiences with being in the suburbs, especially in Glen Ellen. I don't see too much negativity, but it is awkward at times. I know that some people are probably a little awkward about it, especially explaining it to their kids, since now we're in a school setting with Davis being in kindergarten. With preschool here, we've never had problems. We still don't have any problems, but I know that it's different whenever they come into school. So we're looking to that, especially when Davis's classmates start questioning it, of where's your mom? We're not ready for that conversation yet, but I know it's going to happen soon. And then, but you know, for the most part, we are pretty good. You know, it's just hard to be our family type and be in an area that is not typical of our family type. So, you know, it's just when we go out to eat, we notice people do look at us a little differently. I'm not hyper aware of it. Todd is a little bit. I'm afraid if I am aware of it too much, then it will bother me, so I try to ignore. But we do notice people do look at us, look at our kids. Sorry, I had coffee this morning and it's taking my foot. So for the most part, we don't have any really many problems yet, and that's fine. Our neighbors are nice, and have been open to us ever since we moved. But obviously, we don't know all of our neighbors. We live in the town here, and there are instances where we've had issues before, but we can talk about that throughout the hour. But for the most part, it's been fairly positive.
So one of the things that we looked at when we moved out this way was how safe we would likely be.
Yeah.
So when you moved in from Virginia, what kind of things were you looking for in the Glen Ellen area, and like, why here?
Yeah, we get asked that quite often, and I think it's people that have lived here forever ask us, why did you choose Glen Ellen? Because, I don't know, I think maybe, but, you know, we looked in some areas. We didn't look closer to the city, because we needed to be closer to my job, which is in the Rolling Meadows. So we did look north and stuff, and I don't know what it is, we just kind of walked through Glen Ellen, and we liked the feel of it. Being gay parents, we didn't take that into too much consideration, which is because it is what it is, and we can't be too scared about that. And we looked around to make sure there wasn't a lot of anti-flags or any anti-stuff. But, you know, you don't know your neighbors until you move in, so it's hard to judge that. We were concerned, of course, one for Davis, because we only had Davis at that point. But we more so wanted a comfort when we St. Mark's was here, because we obviously looked in the churches and areas that we looked at, and that's why we are Episcopalian. So we wanted to make sure that we were close to the church, that we'd be able to attend regularly, and we just kind of fell in love with Glen Ellen, not the comfort part of it, and that comes with after you move in. But I want to get to know your neighbors and see how they're comfortable with you as well. But
I just want to make a comment. When I notice a family like yours, I may be aware of it and make you aware that I'm looking, because I admire you.
yeah,
And I wonder if you get some of that. I think this is great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
That's a good question. Yeah, we've had a couple people that we don't know, like, out, and they will often say, oh, your children are so beautiful, you know, that kind of scenarios. And I'm sure some people probably think that and just don't come up and say it, because it's, you know, comfort to, you know, who I am. And, you know, but we do get that sometimes. We've gotten it.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
I'm saying it in
I
public.
appreciate it. Yeah. I get it.
Maybe there is that,
Yeah.
maybe that's some of what you're doing.
Well, and we always take into account a little bit too, you know, one of our children is mixed race. So Davis is Caucasian, and Noah is mixed race, is African American, and Hispanic. So, you know, to see my husband and I, which are Caucasian and Davis, is one thing, but adding in a mixed race child to it as well, we get looks from that aspect. And I know that, but so, it is, we don't get upset about it or anything like that. It's just because it could be that,
Yeah.
you know, it could be something totally different. So.
You want shoes to have on, honestly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't get too worried about it unless somebody's really staring. We might, but somebody coming up and saying anything negative about it, it's not really happened. A couple of occasions have happened more so, but it's more because of Noah as opposed to David. Todd was at Costco one day with Noah early on whenever he's 3.5 now, but whenever the baby, so it was like car seat moving it around kind of stuff, and he had left Costco, and one of the staff members followed him to the car and said, "I just wanted to make sure that was your child." So that, whether or not she did it in a good meaning or not, it's just not good for the person, the parent. So, and I get the human trafficking thing and everything, but whether you're a parent, that's not something that you have to experience. And I was frustrated with that and upset, but thankfully I was not there. Otherwise, they would have seen the non-Christian part of me, which does come out sometimes.
That's all, for sure.
Yeah, so it's hard in that part for us, but, you know, with our adoptions, we were open, we weren't specific on race, so, and we got to keep it.
Can I ask you a question about your adoption
Oh, yes.
process?
Yes, no.
Certainly, I grew up in a different era.
Yeah.
So I was a school teacher. I love kids. But when I would have been your age, where I could have been raising children, it just really wasn't a feasible option for me. Did you have any issues? How did you go through the adoption procedures?
We do get asked that a lot because it is different. So we chose, when we lived in Columbus, which is where Davis was born, we chose an agency in Columbus that was very pro gay families. That was their thing. So we chose them, and also they were smaller too. So if you're with a large agency, it can take you a lot longer to get a child. So get matched for the mother or dad too. So we went that route. You know, we're not young. We're in the 40s, but you know, starting the conversation, we never really thought it could happen. Truthfully, amongst ourselves, to see that we were going to be able to do this. We both wanted kids, but we knew that it was hard. We lived in Virginia for most of our life, which is not very open about a lot of stuff. But we lived in Richmond, so a little bit more difficult, I guess. But you know, making a decision to finally do that. I mean, the Supreme Court ruling to allow us to be married was a big for us because that's what we immediately did to make it legal, and then we started the adoption process. So that opened up a lot of stuff for us, just not to get married. So it was a lot of positive out of that. But when we chose to adopt, that's one thing that we wanted to do, was to go with an agency that was very pro gay families. So that's, we knew that we needed that. Some agencies don't agree with our family type, and I would not want to go with that agency. That's just comfort. But you know, and we chose them, and it was a positive experience. So we used them, even though we lived here when Noah was born. We chose them as well, so at least with the fight for us to take a child. So it is hard to adopt. As I don't know if it's harder as two men or two women. I don't know that, if there's even a difference between those two types of families or not to adopt. We were told with our agency that birth moms tend to like gay dads because they know that they're always going to be the mother in some way. And that was their historical perception of it. So whether or not that's good and bad, obviously. So, you know, we had a failed match. Before Davis was born, we were matched with birth mom in northern states, and we went, the baby was born, and we went And then 2 days later, before she signed, she changed her mind. So we went thinking that we were coming home with a child, and we didn't. So that was obviously heartbreaking, and it took us a little while to get over that. Luckily, we were matched quickly with someone that was giving birth in Columbus, which is where we were living. And so that was Davis. That was a quick turnaround on that one, just because one, we didn't have to go out of the state for the baby, but also it was a process because she signed off. So, and then with Noah, we had to go to Florida because he was born in Florida. And with Davis's, not including the failed match, I think it took us about 8 months from signing up to Davis being born, which is not typical. It does take a long time for families. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it's just days. And then with Noah, it was the kind of same scenario that we got matched probably a little bit before the baby was born, before Noah was born. And then we had to go to Florida for that. Just so you guys know, it's not easy to have an adoption out of state for any family. Because you actually have to go to that state to receive the baby, and you can't leave that state until early paperwork is done. In Florida, I think we were there for 2 weeks. We had to, before paperwork got, and they told us it would be 2 or 3 or 4 weeks before we could leave. So one of us would have to be there the entire time. We chose to both be there with Davis in a one-bedroom kitchen place, and then of course with Noah too, because he came to us. But you know, it's hard for the adoption process, no matter what kind of family type you are. But because one, different states have different ideas on how long the birth mother can have to sign off on her parental rights, and if there's a birth dad involved, and that's different. And then the states obviously turn around for when you can actually leave that state is something different as well, so you could be there for a while. And I don't know about out of the country stuff, but I know you are there for a while. So.
Were you able to get paternity leave?
Well, I stopped working as soon as my first son was born. So I went on medical leave because I could, because I wanted to make sure that's what I wanted to do. And then I did end up leaving my job, so I didn't have to take paternity leave. My husband at that point was able to take a couple of weeks. He didn't take it at the same time, but he took a little bit later so he could have some time off, but he did. Was able to take it. So it depends on the company, really. And I know that that's a push with the Biden administration. I don't know if it can happen, but, you know, to be able to have paternity leave as well. So.
And I think with adoption, it's particularly challenging. I know I'm an adoptive parent, and at the time my son was born, I worked at Benedictine University, and they're like, you know, well, since you didn't give birth, you don't get any time, and I'm like, you're a Catholic university, and you're pro-life, and so then they gave me 2 weeks. But you know, and it happens so suddenly. You don't have, you know, you have. Like if you were pregnant and then you knew about when the baby was going to be born, but you know, it was like all of a sudden you're a parent and you're not prepared, and you're like,
It's interesting that you got it on your side of it as well. Usually it's my dad not maybe.
And my husband at the time, well, he's still my husband, but at the time.
Another story for you.
Well, you know, he didn't show up today, so I don't know. But he worked at Wheaton College, and he went to them and said the same thing. He's like, you know, you pay for the medical expenses of somebody who's having a baby, but adoption is really expensive. And so they instituted something that for a long time was known as the Fletcher Plan, where they gave money for adoption, so that they give money toward adoption, and it was because of our situation that started. Yeah, right. Right back in their faces, right?
earlier you mentioned, you know, I mean, you used the word Christian, and so I feel like this community is really interesting. There's a lot of religious feelings here. And so I'm kind of interested to see if you've had any of that presented to you. I mean, I'm so glad, you know, that St. Mark's is here. You know some of our story, and we don't need to get into that. But 15 years ago, this conversation wouldn't have been happening. And it wouldn't be happening at probably most of the churches in Glen Ellyn still. And I'm just wondering, you know, because there's so much, you know, hurt and hateful stuff that comes through Christianity. And I'm just wondering if you experience any of that here in Glen Ellyn.
Not particularly. I mean, definitely not with this church. You know, and it's nice to drive around and see the pride flags in the First Congregational Church when it goes out, which is usually a lot of fun. And I get a Lutheran church on the corner that always has their
Grace Lutheran.
Yeah, so I mean that's nice to see as well. I don't feel any religious pressure or anything like that. I mean, I see religious comments on Facebook and stuff, and that's something different. But from the churches itself, I'm not. Oh, and of course, the Presbyterian Church has their rainbow flag inside, hanging inside there, and it's always hanging around the corner here. Oh, you're not a Methodist church, sorry. I don't think it's so
that would have been a shock to me.
I know. Probably not right.
Keeping it inside, not being outside.
Well, yeah. So because I volunteer at Wonka Ministry, which is at First United Methodist Church as well. So every time I go in there, I mean, it's like hanging there. It's interesting. It's interesting for that church, but it's also like and of course we put ours out and everything too here. So I'm sure we get some pushback on from community members and stuff, or random people posting on Facebook about comments on our stuff. But you know, we put it out ours too. You know, we were very uncomfortable when we first put our pride flag out here as well, because even though we're very obvious, I even laugh. I was like, we obviously stand out quite a bit in this community because of husbands, and also that we have 2 children and one is mixed race. So like we get so we stand out. But you know, we haven't seen anything or heard anything yet, especially from the churches. So I mean, I grew up in a non-church family, and I went to my neighbor to a Free Will Baptist church, which is a different conversation, which is what my memory and everything of churches is. So it took a long time for me to get the buy-in to come back to a church. And Todd grew up in a different church too, but ever since he left his family home, he always went to a physical church. So he took him quite a few years to get the buy-in for me to come back to the church, because that's hell and damnation, you know, everything like that. That's not what I'm all about. And I do not like people screaming at me in church. Well, we got a lot in other churches, but you know, so I get it. We're always comfortable here too, and thankfully we don't have a lot of bad stories from Glen Ellyn and the, you know, suburbs and everything. There are situations, obviously, that we try not to put ourselves in and feel awkward about, but with me, not the boys. The boys don't care, you know, me and making sure I'm comfortable as well. But the question, I think we felt very comfortable.
So you said that seeing the flags and the signs around people's homes and businesses and churches makes you feel more welcome and accepted. What are other ways we in the church or in the community can show more signs of support from the message?
I don't know, that's a pretty good question. I mean, truly, I mean, it's one thing to put it out there and, you know, Gay Pride Month, but, you know, I see lots of flags that are continuing out, even on Main Street, you see flags out a lot. And even when we got through Wheaton, which still surprises me to see a lot of the Gay Pride flags in Wheaton, but. Yeah, there you go. Well, your house, I see it. Yeah, but it just so surprises me because we're not from here, but we only hear the history of Wheaton, of course, and stuff. But you know, it's always good. I don't know what to answer that with, because I mean, doing what you're doing is perfectly fine, and it helps, and being a voice for us when we're not there and standing up for us if something happens. I mean, Lord forbid if something does happen negative to us. us meaning the gay community. There's a lot of gay people here that live in Glen Ellen. There's a Facebook group that's going for local-ish people too, and everything, that we talk about and everything, but, not a lot of negative stuff going on.
I mean, it just comes to mind, like, thinking about, like, you mentioned the preschool, and the parents go out and thinking the bookstore, and the library, jobs with it, having a lot of books that, for children and youth, that, portray, families, all kinds of families and stuff. And I haven't thought about, like, whether in our programs, you have those, that books.
Yeah, well, preschool, I'm not sure too, I'd have to ask Christine about the books with the preschool and stuff, I'm sure she's open. She got a spot, I don't know the library stance, I don't know if it's actually.
No, I think they do,
Yeah.
I think that they are.
I'm sure they
You can ask me, yeah.
Yeah.
Ask me anything.
Yeah, and then obviously, we know the recent thing of the teacher that put on leave and everything in Glen Ellen, and whether or not it's especially the TikToks and stuff like that, or if it's because of the books, but a lot of the hatred and stuff that I saw on Facebook surrounding that was a lot of people upset that she was showing books about different types of families and everything, and they did not appreciate that, so.
Didn't they reinstate her?
Yeah, she's back. I don't know why she actually got on leave, I never found that out, but,
Well, the thing about Facebook, though, if somebody,
yeah, well, unfortunately, a couple people I was connected with on Facebook that are no longer connected with me on Facebook, which surprised me, but, it's like, she was just showing different types of families and stuff. It wasn't like she was teaching sex ed to kids at that age or whatever. It's totally different, yeah.
Well, let us know what we can do.
Yeah,
We need to be told.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
We're
And if I experienced it and thought it, then of course I would do something like that up, especially in the church and the community. I have a hard time voicing myself too much, but.
We have the communication stuff.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Father George on my posting sometimes, but
Put a big gay flag on the corner of the angle.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when I first became interested in and we were looking for churches, one of the things I did see was a rainbow flag on the. It wasn't that big. It was probably like that, but it was enough.
Yeah.
It was enough to tell me, oh yeah. And don't underestimate the small things. 'Cause I think I told you this before, Jack. When I was a kid, I actually stole a book from the library about no. But then I put it back and then I stole it a couple of times.
I felt bad, and then she's like, whatever.
But that was the only thing that I had that gave me a little bit of information about what I needed to do, or well, not what I needed to do, but I'm not by myself.
Right.
Yeah, it was
I
great.
think you just borrowed it, you just didn't borrow it at the conventional
I-
library. You returned it.
Well, okay.
And she didn't want to be identified with,
Well, when I was a kid, I was that library kid.
Yeah.
I was the one with I brought my book back on time. I was like that. Yeah, and
That's
they
not
were
that
all nice,
surprising.
and I didn't go to the corner.
No writing in it, no nothing.
Yeah, no writing, no highlighting, no, I
There
didn't
you go,
do
that's
that.
a good one.
Yeah, and I totally judged the people that did.
Yeah.
But, I did that.
Well, I have to say, I've lived in this area, I live in Hayden
Yeah.
for 60 years, and I'm politically active, so I know who all my neighbors are.
Yeah.
Most of them are evangelical, and I've had every political sign stolen over and over and over and
That's
over.
nice, though.
And I have to well, then I have to take them in at night.
Oh,
I
yeah.
even had a hate has no home here,
Yeah.
stolen.
Yeah.
No way.
And I thought, who would steal that?
Yeah.
And so when I got my pride flag about 3 years ago, I thought, how long is this going to
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I have to give him credit that it's still there.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe they don't know what it stands
Oh, how pretty.
What a nice
Nobody said oblivious.
That is a good thing. Our flag is very pretty, so.
It's cute.
Yeah, we always say too, still my sign, I just have to buy another one, and it goes towards them,
I don't care.
it's agency that needs the money, so still away. Yeah.
I know.
I'll donate money to it.
I'm very proud of
Yeah.
whoever
Yeah.
gives all my
Yeah,
time.
no, maybe they're putting them in their yard.
Yeah.
Probably not,
I'm the only one.
I'd like
Funny.
to get on to what Joanne had said about, communication.
Yeah.
Especially because that's what led Steve and I
Yeah.
to leave, the Catholic Church and start to attend an Episcopal. Because I went searching for a lessons in carols at the time, and I came across St. Nicholas in Oak Grove Village. And looking on the webpage, at the bottom of it, Steve Marks was very much out there promoting, that this was an open parish. So there was a pride flag at the bottom of the website. And, it's 15 years ago, almost 20 years. So it's important for those that are seeking a change, that are caught into a system that really doesn't support you, to be able to suddenly find someplace that does support you and is reaching out. So I think it's important. When I started seeing that on our postings, that was really.
So when you go to our webpage, where is the parade flag?
Top.
It's at the top. It's at the top.
Not hitting the spot.
It wasn't when we first started.
Yeah, it did take a little bit of time.
Well,
Yeah.
we're learning. We're getting better.
Oh, we didn't have a flag up.
We did.
A sign outside.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
I had to take that sign down because we had to put the mom stuff on. I felt so bad taking the sign down. because I wanted
People are like, why are you taking that
I
sign?
know, I was like, oh, people eyeing me like, stop taking my sign down. What is
Good and
mom?
over.
You did put it back up though after this.
So, it's kind of a layered question of you personally and then professionally, and however you want to interpret that. There's, I think the question of symbols and the optics and meaning and sizes and placements. So if we have things that are important and we need to address it right now, but we also have important things that are perennial or that keep going, what are your thoughts about how do we, changing the signs? If there's something else that, we're kind of in discussion about the Black Lives Matter sign that's going to need replacement just because it's weathered. Like, how do we, so what's your personal and or professional feeling about how those things change over time?
Well, like I said, I mean, it did bother me taking the flag down, and the pride flag at least does. And I know that when we take the Black Lives Matter sign down, I'm worried about what it will be perceived as if it's not replaced. And I worry about our pride flag, even though it's on our website, we don't have anything else. But there's replacing it is important and bringing it back, not forgetting about it, and not just bringing it out in June whenever for Pride Month and everything, but showing support throughout the year as well. So I think it is important that we are aware of those things. Like I said, I mean, when he mentioned that it was at the bottom of the page, nice, great, that brought them in, but then I'm always afraid of the things being hidden. There's a lot of things in Glen Ellen and Wheaton. I don't know if you see, a lot of the stores have the Glen Ellen Gay Alliance kind of thing. Somebody in Wheaton started an organization for youth as well for support, because there's not many support programs around, and he went around to all the businesses in Glen Ellen and Wheaton, which is very hard for him, and got their buy-in on it. So they're going to be able to look at, and it is a rainbow-ish, different variation of it, sticker that they put in the windows. But when they get taken down, just because of coming off and stuff, and if they don't replace them, then that loses its support. But it is bothersome about something to replace and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean there's less support from St. Mark's. I know the reason, but somebody driving may not know the reason. But the flag is not there.
One of the things that I've noticed in that line is how important word of mouth is. So when I was working at the ER, it was kind of a joke, kind of not, but all the gay people used to show up when I was there that day. And that reminds me, when you said that of Stephen Marks, it's the same thing, because Stephen Marks was very involved in, working with people with HIV. And so who had HIV in the
Pastoral
80s.
care network.
Yeah, gay men. And so, word of mouth, oh, hey, there's this rector at St. Nicholas in Mount Grove. And, there's this gay rector at, well, that's how I heard about it, at Holy Nativity in Croydon Hills. Or there's this, there's a big communication fire, right? Right, so, that's how, so when you say to one another, and I think this is a cool thing about allyship, which is, I hope everyone is, when you say to one another, hey, we are a really welcome community. We have an LGBT speakers, we have people who, you can see who you are here.
We've seen a change though, like at St. Mark's or at St. Nicholas. After Ethan left to go into studying for ministry, he had a gay group that was meeting there very consistently, every 2 months or so, they had a meeting. So there was a core group of us where we could socialize, and when Ethan left, he kind of just left the group, and then the group fell apart. So for us, sociability is missing in a lot of places. Living in Schaumburg now for 23 years, you don't see a lot of gays. You see HRC stickers, equal rights stickers, but there's no sense of social community that we could pull on. And used to be the bars. Phoenix Bar closed in Elk Grove Village, so there isn't any bars really out in the northwest suburbs anymore. Here, there's definitely no bars now. And so, that social community where you feel it's always great to have the alliance, but that need to have each other to be able to talk.
Well, and I feel that, that has happened in the last, and is happening in the last several years at St. Mark's. Like George alluded to our history, which, those of us who, like Tim and I, who were there, and they,
Oh, that is true.
But we know how we would not have a rainbow flag out there, and those of us who stayed because it was something we believed in and was important. And so it's taken a while, but I really feel like Joanne being on staff has made a big difference. I think
I still confuse people though when I go to that Blueberry Marketplace across
Blackberry.
Oh, Blackberry.
See, you don't even know what kind of berry it is.
Well, I mean, anyhow, sorry, go ahead.
But George from the get-go, George,
Yeah.
you blessed, relationships and you did, marriage as soon as you were able to. Maybe that wasn't broadcast, but it was quietly happening and changing, which progress is slow. It's slow, but it was consistent. And you were very intentional about doing that. As soon as you came here, given where we were coming from, that divorce that we had here.
And the vestry passed a resolution that said the clergy may work with opposite gender couples the same way as same gender couples. And that was a policy statement that was made by the leadership. So, and some churches that would allow their clergy to celebrate a wedding or whatever out, in the park, but not in their building, right? And so we, St. Mark's, we have had marriages for same-gender couples. And blessings. And blessings, yeah, before it was legal. So, that's been, what we'd say, and for Episcopalians, you know, what we do in our liturgy is so important, you know, about who we are. And so doing that, I think, is really important. But I'm here because because of the bishop, of Gene Robinson. So when Gene Robinson became a bishop in New Hampshire, you know, that caused this church to go through a convulsion, and people left because of that. And Gene Robinson, for those who don't know, was a priest in the Diocese of New Hampshire who was, he had a partner, a male partner. They weren't married at the time because they couldn't be married, but he was elected their bishop. And so then, you know, people, I guess, were willing to have gay priests, but when a gay bishop, I mean, and this is, again, openly gay bishop, because we've had gay bishops. In the Diocese of Chicago has had gay bishops. I mean, like, but it was secret, right? Nobody talked about it. Bishop Montgomery, let's just say it, was a gay bishop, but it was never, everybody knew, but no one would say it. I mean, like, this is the craziness of this diocese. We've got a lot of illness in our diocese because of this, because of secrets. But Bishop Robinson caused this church to split. People left. So that's basically why I'm here, because you know, this church wanted to continue to be an Episcopal church. And so from the very beginning, you know, you have to decide, what ditches are you going to die in? Are you going to die in this ditch of welcoming all people or not? And people at St. Mark, so May and Joyce and Tim and others, I mean, Miguel, you had a lot of courage, and oh my gosh, I mean, your faith.
George, there were times when I thought I would just kill myself at the altar. It was so bad. Dick and I would talk about it. It was such a terrible time. We were abandoned, and no, we're not.
We were relatively new, and I think because my husband teaches at Wheaton College, there were assumptions that we would fall on the other side of the thing.
Right.
So it was kind of an interesting time.
There was a time when they gave us teaching. Do you remember? And we're not allowed to ask questions.
Oh, like those big, like forums that, yeah.
It was like a 3-week teaching.
Right.
And we were not allowed to raise questions, and the only person who stood up was the Rural Senate, who was deaf, and to talk about reading the Bible. Anyway, she is my heroine. She was fabulous. Because they had a 3-week session where I think they were going to brainwash us. And
when you say they, it was the clergy, is that correct?
Well,
it wasn't the clergy, but they were supported.
It was like
it was the college.
well, not entirely.
No, not entirely right, because Dolores objected.
Yeah, well, Mark Galley was kind of one of the leaders, wasn't he?
I think Jay was. It was Jay
Oh, was it Jay?
Jay was,
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought it was Alan.
Well, that's
He was involved too.
But,
Yeah.
but, you know, what we found out, and this is a positive thing, is they didn't speak for everyone.
Right.
And so we had a divided leadership on our vector, and we were able to, you know, to get some support from the diocese, which was kind of dysfunctional at the time as far as being able to really support us. But, you know, it was bad and it was unfortunate, but we did the right thing, and here we are. Here we are. This is the result of it. This is great. Love it. What year was this about? 2004, 2005?
2000, so Bishop Robinson was elected in 2003, and that was in the summer, and then in the fall there was a convention, a general convention of the Episcopal Church in Minneapolis, and his election to bishop had to be approved by the bishops. So at that general convention there was chaos, right? But the bishops approved him, and then because he was approved there, then other bishops started to say, well, maybe we're going to move out of the Episcopal Church, and churches reacted. And this church in particular, between the fall of 2003 into this winter of 2004, was where everything started to unravel. And the rector left in, was it February of 2004? And
Right
that's
after the annual meeting.
Yes,
right
right.
after the annual
Yeah,
meeting.
It was a very contentious annual meeting.
It was victorious.
So then by the summer of 2004, pretty much the people who didn't agree had left.
Well, George, also, all the clergy who didn't agree left the church without notice, so that a particular woman was stick in that valley where the old senior warden. Right. They had to go to the diocese and say, you know, all of our clergy have left. I mean, truly. And the diocese stepped up, so, it was a horrible, it was just a terrible time, terrible. Oh, what a sorry then.
Well, let's put out the flag again, what's after the pumpkins are.
Yeah.
We could have it there, like November is the new Pride Month. I mean, let's, and December and January and February, you know, but put it out. And, you know, put it out and take out, put it out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we should do that.
Well, I always think that it's good. It's not for me as an adult so much, but it's also the kids that walk around and, you know, they have to know that they're being supported in the communities and because we know that a lot of gay youth in the community by itself. So, I mean, it's a small town, so it's not a small town still, like, but it is a small town. So we support everybody as much as we can.
I'd like to give credit to the Wheaton Franciscan sisters, because many years ago, when AIDS was rampant and there was so much misinformation about it, the Franciscan sisters opened Canticle Place. I don't know if you're aware of it, right on their property, and it was for people who were dying of AIDS and had nowhere to go. And I went with them to the county board. I don't know why we had to go to the county board meetings to get approval. But the things people said were very unchristian, and they just blasted ahead and did it anyway. And Canticle Place is still there, and I really admire everything they've done. We also went through the same thing when they wanted to put the low-income housing on their property, and it's right there, Marion Park. And, oh my gosh, the screaming we heard, you know, our neighborhood, and all that kind of thing, low income housing. And we kept saying, you know, you need people to work. You know, they can't live here. And, oh, it'll be torn down, it'll be shoddy. Well, it's beautiful, and it's been well maintained, and it's been a wonderful place. And the Wheaton Franciscan nuns are out there. They're very liberal. They're very accepting, despite being Catholic, and really, and they always have been. They always have been. So you have to give them some credit for thinking out of the Catholic box.
Maybe we can invite them over.
Yeah, oh, they're wonderful. The few that are left are wonderful.
I want to say something about how the Latino context in this conversation. It's very important. Maybe you asking how did they happen, how did they do, you know, about especially how they learning, you know, to manage this important conversations. I would say that the Latinos, they are learning, you know, we come in from tradition, Catholic, Roman Catholic tradition, very strong Roman tradition. The culture, you know, too, it's an, some kind of reactions to the, not totally, now it's changing, hopefully, even in Mexico and in Latin America. But I'm part of this, by hearing this, because people don't know much about how can you manage this conversation or how can be accepted in this community. I say thank you to some arts because they are having very welcome to everyone, and they feel like that, you know, and maybe understand that having a transition, you know, not only a religious transitions, and also cultural transition. It's having done very well, you know, I'll tell you. Of course, I know we need to work more and focus like on some people in the community, you know, if they don't feel accepted or they don't know how to connect it too. I think that what I hear right now is very positive, you know, that we need to bring into the Latino community. But this step by step, you know, because right now where we are is privileged to take be in the physical church where we see a woman's service, you know, it's very important. It's a big transition and it's something new. And of course, in the beginning, like everyone in here, doesn't know how to react, you know, when something new is happening in your life. But in this point right now, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. There's more community, like Joanne, you know, or previous stories that we hear, you know. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, you know, that of course they need time, and they need to learn how can we create, how can we manage, you know, this conversation. To say we are welcome, you know, welcoming to everyone. Sometimes have some challenges, you know, that we need to learn. But it's possible. Yes. So again, thanks to so much. They are start to this reflecting what they say, what they're doing, you know. So it's important. We cannot everywhere happen that way, you know. Unfortunately, and even in the diocese, there's struggle with something, especially like with the female clergy. I would say that very hard, you know. I have to raise my voice in there right now, and they're learning. I hope, you know, to in the future they will get the balance equally, opportunity for everyone. We really need it, you know. But this is not only in diocese, it's in the everywhere. I tell you. Conversation in the Prince County, you're learning too, you know, how to trade the political situation with the Latinos, you know, or the reverse. You know, it's good, you know, that we are moving forward and with an open mind. This is going pretty good, you know. It takes time. But again, from the Latinos, we say that thank you because you will feel welcome. People feel like that, but we need to continue working.
I wanted to add that coming from Seattle, I feel like we're like through the looking glass because being a gay couple in Seattle, then you go to church, you do that. I think it really cuts both ways to see that gay people are going to church and that a church community is open to all kinds of families. That's important in Seattle, it's important because people don't see those things as things.
Well, as gays, we have felt the anger of all of those churches that are so against us. Even though we were loved in the Catholic Church, we were tolerated. You know, to come to a church where you can feel welcome and loved and it's just accepted for who you are, and that's why a lot of gay people just avoid church because they've had that feeling.
Nobody in church. Seattle's like one of the most unchurched places in the whole country, and it really is just. I think it's a level of ignorance about the variety of religions there are, even within Christianity. People say if you say you're Christian, they think you're evil. That's all. So I think there's a point of. I make a point of saying people. You know, I'm a liberal. I'm a typical Seattle resident, and I go to church, and my church is totally welcoming of my and I think people need to know that churches aren't all one. And in Seattle, it's very narrow-minded.
Hal and I were involved, always been involved with whatever church we've been in during from the Catholic churches during our time. And very active in everything. In the last church we were in, you couldn't just go in and register by filling in a card and being in. You had to register and they had a meeting with one of the priests. So we did. And we went in and we were there for about an hour. And Hal got some questions and we went through all that. And then Greg turned to me and said, do you have any questions? I said, yeah. How's the parish going, and we've been there for about a year and a half before we registered. How's the parish going to deal with 2 gay men in the parish? Greg's first response was, well, I kind of thought you were, you know, type of thing. You know, but then, because, you know, he's a Chicago gay priest that had never known any gay priests.
Yeah, he's right to the cathedral.
You know, but anyhow, so it's like, you know, so so like I said, we've always been involved in everywhere, and every congregation parish we've been in is very supportive, and we never had any feedback or any ill will churches, we were thankful for, because I'm sure it could have gone the other way anyway, type of thing. So we've been fortunate in our time together that every parish we've been in has been welcoming and accepting, going forward.
And we met at the Deus Church in Chicago. St. Sebastian.
I was gonna say.
At Wellington and Halsted.
I just want to be clear that when I'm at the altar, all the gay people glow, and I can see you from like a
Rainbow glow.
yeah, it's like so much to say about that.
Well, the Zoom people, we have to say goodbye because it's a little bit after 10 o'clock, and so then we have to get ready for the 10:30 service, but we'll say goodbye. Thank you all.